Good evening and welcome to Kyler Speaks episode number 8. I had to come back and do a quick podcast because I have some pretty crazy information regarding Jeffrey Epstein. We all know that as of recent, the Epstein files have leaked even more, which I don't necessarily understand the leak. Why are you leaking them? Yeah, you're trying to redact victims, etc., but you're basically just going through them with a fine tooth comb and picking out everything that you don't want to be exposed. That's a side note. I went through and it's a lot. It's going to take me a very, very long time. I am the type of person that I think about things almost religiously. I get obsessed, and I became obsessed with this. And so I think that I may have better or at least different insight than the majority of people that are speaking online. I'm not quite as famous yet as those people, and hopefully this video gains traction. But I'm going to sit down and speak to you about at least a few of the conclusions that I've came to regarding exactly what Jeffrey Epstein was doing. That's one thing we don't understand. What was he doing? What was he doing? He obviously, for the record, did not kill himself. He's too much of an egotistical prick. And I've been around rich people like this, billionaires, they don't fear consequences. The ones that come from wealth and have always been wealthy, and I know that Epstein did not come from wealth, but he has always been surrounded by wealth. And the dirtier things you have to do in order to gain wealth, the less accountability you have once you reach that pinnacle you set for yourself, deeming yourself quote unquote successful. He had no accountability. It was almost like his brain was compartmentalized, like he was looking at himself from a third eye view in some omnipotent way. And that says a lot about his psychology just within itself. But I can, what he says and how he says it gives me major context clues as to what he was doing and who he was dealing with. One of the most interesting things that I came across was him meeting, attempting to meet rather, multiple times with Elon Musk. Now, Elon Musk had said previously that this is false. He never met with him. And yeah, he didn't meet with him, but he attempted to. He attempted to for years on numerous occasions. He attempted to go out and meet with him on his island. That is without question. He wanted to get together at the launch initially for SpaceX. And so why? I don't believe that Elon Musk had any ill intentions. I think that all these rich people wanted to hang around him because they thought or assumed from inside talk that he was the mastermind behind not only preserving their wealth, but growing their wealth. Because you have to remember, Jeffrey Epstein was deemed the and I'm thinking about all this off the top of my head, so bear with me. There will be pauses here, but there are gems within the words that I'm speaking. So hopefully you can deal with the pauses as I think in real time. We're talking about something very complex here. Jeffrey Epstein was deemed to be the most knowledgeable person when it came to money. Not necessarily the stock market, not the housing market, but he was able to put all of these pieces together in a way, and he compared it to a body with different organs being different parts of our economy and of our economic system, if you will. And he himself said that no one understands it. And it's because we made it much too complex. We manipulated it in such a way in order to squeeze every drop from our economy in order to serve interests of maybe the American people to get them elected or to serve themselves. They've manipulated currency. And for the record, he goes into speaking about exactly why this is so difficult to understand. It's made that way intentionally. It's actually not difficult. Certain aspects, including Wall Street, they're not doing a difficult task. They make an illusion towards its difficulty in order to hide or preserve the fact that they are doing absolutely nothing. In a capitalistic society, you're supposed to do something and then get something in return, right? It's stored economic value. That's what money is. It's transfer of money. I will do this, you will do that, and we can trade based on this thing here. It's supposed to represent something. The people on Wall Street do absolutely nothing. They just manipulate currency. And whenever you take currency out of its realm of influence, being if you're talking about the United States, then anytime you trade against the United States with other foreign currencies, then it fucks up the entire system. I thought that was very fascinating. He also alluded to the fact that he knew that Bill Clinton was going to crash the housing market, and he met with Bill Clinton multiple times. He warned him that the housing market was going to collapse. He said, not everyone deserves or can responsibly own a home. They can't all get loans. This is not going to work. And inevitably, they did it anyways. They've all done it. Because one thing I found extremely interesting throughout all this evidence is the fact that Epstein is, whether you like him or not, he's a realist. He knew that not everyone could sustain a mortgage. Their credit was shit. They didn't deserve to have a mortgage. And presidents kind of wanted to put out the American dream. Everyone should be able to afford a home. It simply doesn't work that way. And so it crashed our financial system. People were going to Epstein, all of these rich people, in order to hedge against that crash. And they've done it over and over and over again. I think it's not interesting that Elon wanted to meet with Epstein. I think it's more interesting when he wanted to meet with Epstein. When is just as foresightful as if he wanted to at all. Because what would he have to gain? Whenever two people have an interaction, you want to gain something from that. And I just don't know anymore. At first, initially, before I had really broken down exactly who this man was, because we all know that he practically came from nothing. He was considered to be a genius, but did not really grow up very well. We don't know too much about his parents. We know a little bit, not enough. He gets picked out, put into a very exceptional school where he teaches, gets to know the parents, and then goes to work for Bear Stearns and begins doing incredible work there. To me, he doesn't sound like a genius when he speaks. He sounds like someone that is almost delirious. Like no one has ever questioned him. He's always been told that he is the most knowledgeable person, and so he's began to believe it himself. He doesn't speak like a genius. And furthermore, unless you're speaking within the realm of knowledge that a genius works to obtain every single day, a genius, a true genius, is humble enough and has enough humility to always understand that he is not the most intelligent person on every single subject, and he will likely defer you back to other people, whether it be people he knows or people he's read upon. You just can't know everything about everything. You're still a monkey, even if you are an extremely gifted and talented monkey. Our brains don't work that way. He seems like someone that has gotten everything he's ever wanted, and that says a lot about his psyche. It says a lot about him. He had no remorse. He definitely did not get rid of himself in prison. He talks about it. He talks about it years prior. He talks about himself having to, when the financial collapse happened, having to go back and forth between two phones to speak to different people because they didn't want you to have a long enough cord in order to do something that is bad, which I cannot say because we're on YouTube, but we all know what he ended up being accused of doing to himself in in prison. It just didn't happen. I just don't see that happening. He's way too egotistical. He thought he was going to get out of it. He's always gotten out of it. He's been there multiple times. I don't see how this was any different. He never had to face consequence. And so he obviously had something on every single person. Now, what he had, I'm not quite sure. It could very well be that he introduces all these people, the very, very rich, very, very elite people, presidential candidates, leaders of foreign nations. He tells them exactly how the economy works, and he says, if this gets out, I have something on you. Inevitably, he did. That could have been his thing, or he could have just enjoyed it. He could have been a freak that has never been told no in his entire life. And so he gets joy from doing something that is wicked and not socially acceptable. And I've seen a lot of people like that, not quite to that level, but anytime you hang around exorbitantly wealthy people, especially if they didn't quite earn it themselves, they or didn't work hard to get it, they are a little bit off, whether it be swingers or just maniacal. They're just terrible. A lot of the people go after younger people because they want something that they can't have, and they can have everything. So they do these crazy things in order to fulfill some need they have within themselves to feel taboo, if that makes any sense. But Epstein, he knew a lot about a lot of different things, but he was no genius. I can tell. What's very fascinating as well is he talks about Los Alamos Labs. I'm pretty familiar with that. They were working on very big things at Los Alamos, including the atomic bomb, hydrogen bomb. They were working on energy. I believe they have or at least had underneath, and I think this is disclosed now, but a particle accelerator very, very deep underground there. They were working on finding different particles. They found the quark there. If you guys know what that is, they found multiple quarks there, if I'm not mistaken. It could be broken down into different atomic structures, but I just don't see how maybe he was the guy that went around and got everyone in on this big secret. Once you make an exorbitant amount of money, you get let into the fact that the United States as a whole is nothing but fugazi. It's nothing. This financial system has been dead for a long time. And now that they have enough money to potentially rock the boat, they get brought in and get told exactly what to do and how to maintain their level of wealth and not to do anything silly, because if it collapses, then they're going to take down the entire structure, everything. They're going to take it all down. And they themselves are probably blackmailed at that point once they have this knowledge. I'm not quite sure. And I think that everything that comes out, you kind of have to piece it together, and you can't take anything with anything more than surface value, because they are very strategically laying all of this evidence out. They're not just redacting the victims' names and photos and images. They're not. They're trying to dump us with so much information that we lose sight of exactly what it is this man was doing. But he was doing something. He was meeting with the most prominent people and discussing everything from physics to our economy to central banking systems to currency. It just makes absolutely no sense. How was he? He was obviously in charge of an exorbitant amount of wealth. I believe his name was Lex Wessner. He's his own character, but he was in charge of his wealth. And I think that he used that in order to smooth people into becoming blackmailed. I don't think that the majority of people that ran into him wanted what we all assume they wanted from him. I think that was his own thing. That was his own weird thing that he had going on. And they put that in the back of their minds and said, I'm going to talk to this creep anyways because he has something that I can learn from. He knows something that I don't, and he could protect me. He could protect me from losing this massive amount of wealth that I've generated for myself. And I think they put up with it and they dealt with it. Now, we all know that Bill Clinton is a creep, right? We all know he's a horn dog. We just do. But I think that the conversations they had were much more valuable than just going on that island to prey upon the people that we know he had at that island. I don't think I think that was his own thing. And maybe Bill participated in that. Maybe he didn't. But that was not the sole reason why he went. They may just manipulate every single person. They know exactly. For some people, it's women. For some people, and they just blackmail you to the point where in which you can never speak out about how the financial system actually works. Because if you do, they're going to rip your life to shreds or they're going to kill you. But the least that could happen is they're going to blackmail you and paint your name over with the worst potential accusation the world has ever seen in general. It's a terrible thing. And it's just so fascinating. This man has touched everything that is prospering within our economy. And he's been there for all of the downfalls, every single one of them. Who is this man? Who was he fronting for? Why was he there? I'm left with even more questions than answers. This guy doesn't seem like a very intelligent guy to me. He just doesn't. I don't get that sense from him. I don't get he doesn't seem exceptionally ambitious or driven. He seems very laid back and comfortable. And you don't get that from high level people. And if you're a genius, then you, most of the time, have a deep, almost unhealthy obsession with whatever it is you're interested in. I don't get that from him. I get the fact, or at least the inkling that he was obsessed with power and he wanted status and influence. Behind the scenes, maybe, sure, but he wanted to hold on to a sense of self-importance. He wanted people to come to him and to ask him questions because it made him feel good about himself. I'm left with more questions than I've ever had before. Now, a lot of these girls, he may have very well helped out. And in fact, some of these things, and this is very controversial to say, some of the accusations might have been false. I don't know. I wasn't there. With Photoshop and AI video and photo editing tools nowadays, they can make you see anything they want you to see. And they can take away anything they don't want you to see. The Prince Andrew thing was totally calculated. It's totally calculated. You think they couldn't have just paid people off and gotten rid of that or murdered people? Which I think one of them did get murdered, but if it didn't, it came out for a very, very good reason. I'm not sure what that reason is. I'm not quite sure. I'd love to sit here and say I have all the answers, but I think that this was intentionally brought to us in such a way that you will never be able to find an answer. It will always, always just be one giant conspiracy. And that was very, very intentional. It's just crazy. I really want to know a few things. We still have Ghislaine Maxwell. She's alive. So why are we not investigating her? Why are we not bringing people in and saying, hey, we're not accusing you of anything, but what exactly did you speak about? What did you speak about? I don't know if it was for what we think it may have been for, or if it was for something else that they wanted under the radar and to be left in secrecy with privacy being their conversation, but whatever that conversation was, we have to know about it. Because that, I think, is very, very more interesting than what they've given to us thus far. Yeah, he may have been a pedo, sure, but I think that's just the scapegoat. I really think that's a scapegoat for something much, much more grand that was going on. Whether it be a giant cover up of some part of our financial system that's being manipulated over and over and over again. And no matter if you're Republican or Democrat or whose team you decide to play on, it's much deeper than that. I think that it is rotted to its core. And if someone knows that, you don't want that to get out. And so they have to blackmail you. And if you won't shut the fuck up, they kill you. Because, as he said in his own words, if our financial system is like a human body, you will cut off the finger in order to save the rest of the body. The finger is dispensable. It's disposable. You can get rid of it. You don't need it. Whatever he was doing, and I'm not quite sure what he was doing, but it was so much more complicated than what most people could even fathom. He was interested with so many different sectors of science and technology that it's baffling. He was interested in genetics. He was interested in physics. He was interested in math, like large-scale math as a mathematician. And was he able to tie it all together? Potentially. But he had to be working for someone else that told him he couldn't have pieced it together himself because it's much too complex. He was actually on the forefront of artificial intelligence, which I had no idea about. So why are all these rich people coming to him first? Maybe he is the middleman between technological innovation and what potential harm or chaos it would cause in our financial system. Maybe they have to go to him first, and they get blackmailed and they get told to step in line because they don't want to fuck with the way that our system is going, because it's benefiting exactly who it's supposed to be benefiting. It's put there purposefully with very, very purposeful intention. That is why our financial system works the way it does. Otherwise, if it didn't work that way and it didn't benefit the people that it needs to benefit, then they would change it. They say it can't be changed because it's working just fine. And so who was it working for? Or is it all just a scam? Is all of our money just a scam? Maybe that's the secret he had. Maybe the secret is that, or maybe they created some sense of power or energy that made money useless. It made it obsolete. And that was what could potentially devastate, and it would devastate our economy, which inevitably that's about to happen anyways with AI. But at the time, that cat could be put back into the bag without anyone ever knowing. He just seemed he seemed weaker than I expected in these latest set of interviews that came out. He seems much more calm than I would have expected. Arrogant, yes, but he seems just like a little Jewish dweeb. He doesn't seem like someone that holds true power. He doesn't seem like that guy. People that have true power and influence are very authoritarian when they speak. You can tell from their vocality. You can tell by the way they emphasize certain words. They can tell by the way they look at you. Like they say what they mean, the way they speak. He doesn't seem like he has much influence at all. He seemed like a puppet for something much greater than himself. What was that? I don't know. But I think that Robert Maxwell and him had the very same identity within the economic system. Now, what was it that they were doing? I'm not sure. But Ghislaine knows because she picked him. She picked him, and she may have chosen him intentionally from the guidance of her father. I'm not sure. I am just throwing shots in the dark right now. And I'm just asking questions because these are questions that need to be asked. Everyone is so focused on the predatory aspect. And yeah, it happened. Probably happened. I wasn't there. It probably happened. But that's what they want you to be paying attention to. You don't want to look just where the spotlight is beaming down upon. You want to look outside of that because they're giving you that on a silver platter. They want you to look at that. It's what they don't want you to look at. That is what is interesting to me. And I don't know. If you have any ideas, then write it down in the comments. But I'm going to continue to look into this, and I don't want to say anything that I don't know for sure, but I do want to open up questions. If you can think of anything, or you have any sort of information or ideas as to what exactly he was doing, then drop it below in the comments because we can't let this go. Sadly, this will likely just fade away, just like every other news story. But we can't let it because I think this thing goes much deeper than you could even ever fathom. I think that it goes down to the very core of our economic system. And I don't know. I don't know what to tell you guys, but whatever it is, it's more impactful than we could even imagine. So, thank you very much. And like I said, drop whatever information you have down below, and we could read it together and go over it, and we can come to our own conclusion. Don't believe what media is telling you. This big media conglomerate is trying to feed you bullshit. They're trying to distract you. And it's not their fault. They're just monkeys reading from a teleprompter. It's the people that own these corporations, just like Robert Maxwell, Wexner, all these people. They own the media. Bezos. You can't trust them. We have to do our own journalism. We have to do it ourselves. We have to do the due diligence it takes to come to our own conclusion. So, if you have anything, drop it below. Thank you very much, and this is not over. This is definitely not over. And hopefully it doesn't get lost in every other news cycle because this is particularly interesting to me. So thank you very much. Have a nice Sunday.